Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on this chilly and wet Wednesday. We're glad to see you all here today. I'm going to ask each member, we have our cast and our director, I'm going to ask, we'll start with Nicole, if you would each just take a moment to introduce yourselves and let us know what you're doing with this production.
I'm Nicole Capri. I'm resident director and director of education at the Rep, and I am the director of this production.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Gorgone. I'm playing Jovi in this production. I'm originally from Rhode Island and currently living in New York City.
Hi, I'm David Hess. I'm playing Walter Hobbs, the father. I'm originally from Lakeland, Florida, and now based in New York City.
Hi, I'm Annalise Jensen. I am playing the role of Emily Hobbs. I'm originally from Minnesota, and I also live in New York City.
Hello. I am Ethan Paulini. I am playing Buddy the Elf. I am originally from Boston, Massachusetts, and I live in New York City now.
Well, and I don't, give me my hand. And I want to thank Skip and Nikolai and everybody here at the Clinton Center. Skip was remarking as we were sitting backstage that this is our 19th appearance here at the Clinton School. And what an honor it is to be part of this program. There's so many great programs that the Clinton School presents, and we're honored to be here. And we're honored that this is a consistent part of our conversation about what the Rep creates and the work that we do. This is one of the rare opportunities we get to talk about behind the scenes and what goes into the creation of the work that you come down and see at the theater. These actors have been in rehearsal for 22 days. We had our first preview performance last night, and we were remarking backstage. It was also the first time that we did the production without stopping. So something you always strive for when you have an audience it's not stopping. How many of you have seen the film Elf? A lot of you. The film came out in 2003 and was a big hit. It starred Will Ferrell. It's become almost one of those sort of odd phrases, oxymorons. It becomes an instant classic. It's something. I was at the movie theater at the big, like the Rave or something, and now you can go and see Elf at the Rave, certain showings during the day. It's one of those sort of cult films that people go back to. It's become a touchstone for the holidays. It became a musical in 2009 and opened on Broadway in 2010. So it was in the Broadway season 2010, 2011, and then 2012, 2013. And a show like Elf has a fairly limited shelf life. There's a joke there about Elf and shelf, but I'm not going to go there. Because obviously it's a show that you're going to produce during the holidays. Now it's not running in New York this year. It's on tour. There's a tour of it that's gone out. And then this is one of the first years, if not the first year, that regional theaters have been allowed to do it. And there aren't a lot of theaters around the country that are producing Elf. Probably the biggest regional theater that's doing it right now is the Paper Mill Playhouse in New Jersey. But this, Skip mentioned about the ticket sales, and I want to say there are tickets still available. They're after Christmas. A good night to come would be New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. It's a great way to kick off the new year. But there are tickets still available, but I'm not sure that by this time next week there will be any available. So if you haven't gotten your tickets now, I hope you do get your tickets. And there are always cancellations and things like that. We hope everybody will come and see it. I was taken by surprise about the sales volume of the show, but I was doing some research about how well it did in New York. And in the 2010-2011 season, when it first opened in New York, and it only had a very limited run, but it was the third highest grossing show during its run, just after Wicked and The Lion King. It still holds the record for sales at the Hirschfeld Theater where it performed of over $1 million a week. So I guess I shouldn't have been surprised that there is an interesting desire to see how the movie has been turned into a musical, because the film obviously is not a musical. So here we are. Let's start the conversation with Nicole, our director. Nicole, tell us a little bit about, let's begin with the audition process. Talk a little bit about how we arrived at the actors who are here. Two of these actors are returning actors. David is in his second production. You saw him in Treasure Island the musical. Ethan, you've been here 6 times, starting back with Full Monty. And here he is with, now we've let him wear clothes. That's right, 6 more times. Nicole, tell us about the audition process for selecting these actors for Elf.
It's interesting, when I started directing at the Rep over 10 years ago, it was all paper resumes. I mean, you would literally go through 4,000 or 5,000 headshots. Now people submit digitally, electronically, through a website, so you can see 40 actors a page. We probably got 4,000 submissions, and it takes me several weeks to kind of go through and see who I want to see, and I look at every headshot, every resume, and we cull it down to probably around 400, plus we'll see several hundred in an open call up in New York. Not to mention the 200 I saw locally at auditions. So all total, I saw about 900 people for 32 roles. 32 or 33. 13 of which are kids. The Santa's Elves were roles originally written for adults, and we decided to use some of the young artists in our training program. The cute factor has definitely paid off. But it's interesting, I cast Ethan about 6 months ago. He and I've worked on several shows together, 3 just in the last 2 years, and I knew he was the one that I wanted to play Elf right away, which is kind of a luxury for me to have someone pre-cast so that I get to have them in the audition process to see who they resonate with, to see who they have chemistry with. So that was a real luxury for me. But you go through these hundreds and hundreds of headshots. You select people, you set up times with their agents, but it is the first time I have gotten all my first choices across the board for my lead actors, which is really rare. 90% of good directing is great casting. If you get the right people in the room together and the chemistry all comes together, it's magical, and I get to sit back and throw tinsel at them, and it's awesome. But just, I think having your lead secured, knowing that they're going to, because your leads are going to set the tone for your rehearsal process, for the whole production process, but having a positive lead that's infectious, that people like, that was really helpful to me. And having him in the rehearsal and audition process was really important to me too. So out of those thousands, we come back with 32 of what we think is the best of the best, and A+ for me, yay. I did a great job. I'm a great casting director, I'll say that.
And you mentioned the young artists that are in the show, and that this is you made that choice to go with young artists playing the elves. They have some serious dialogue, and you've made some other choices that are a little different too in terms of the through line of the elves through the play, which is something that's new. Mm-hmm. And you work with young artists all the time. That's the Smitty program and the programs, the productions that we do on the main stage. Do you approach working with young actors, young artists, any differently than you do an adult cast? Are there different parameters?
Yes, because I can yell at them.
Which ones can you yell at?
The kids. I can yell at the kids. I have super high expectations for the kids that come out of our training program. They call it theater boot camp when they're there with me, and I love that because we're teaching discipline. I love it that my kids come out of our program, that they know theater etiquette, they know how to say yes ma'am, no ma'am, that they know the right. I love it that my college kids, which Eric Mann is one of them who just graduated, and I saw somebody else here that had a kid that came through my program, that they write us back from college and they say, we're the only ones right now in our freshman group that know how to do this, this, and this. I love that. I love that we train them that way. So yeah, I'm different with them, but if you think about it, adult actors are they're exactly the same as my kid actors. They need the same affirmation. They need the same reinforcement. They need the same positive feedback. I try to treat my kids like adult actors, and I try to remember that my adult actors have the same sensibilities and the same sensitivities that kids do, and hopefully I'm doing an equal job in both areas.
Well, when you see the production, pay attention to the biographies of the actors that are in the program and notice not just the local young artists that are in the production, but the number of the adult cast who have come through the program here at the Rep. And we don't cast, and there's probably 5 or 6 of them who have gone through the Rep's program. We don't cast them when they graduate from college and move to New York and start their careers. We don't cast them just because they're from Little Rock or just because we know them. It's all a level playing field in the audition process. And the people who are coming out of the program, people who are going on to college and people who are then going to New York, are competitive with anybody else at their age and their level of experience in the business, whether they're union or becoming or non-union or becoming union members. The program that Nicole creates, and now is in its 11th year, has really now provided the Rep and theaters across America with a new body of young people that can hold their own anywhere. And that's a testament to Nicole's work and also to the program and the opportunities that are provided by a theater like the Rep and by the program that Nicole creates. Let me jump over here to Buddy. This is, now, talk about as Nicole mentioned, you didn't go through an audition process. You were invited, Nicole asked you if you'd be willing to play the role. You were just here doing the complete works of William Shakespeare Abridged, which Nicole also directed. How do you, this is a title role, the play, the name of the play, it's Buddy the Elf, so you're the elf. So how do you approach a role like that? How do you tackle that?
Well, I think the first thing that you have to address and address it kind of head on is the fact that it's a role that has iconic recognition factor with Will Ferrell and some of the lines and some of the mannerisms. I am not Will Ferrell, and I'm not trying to do what Will Ferrell did in the role, and I think that they have created a really, I think they've created a character in this adaptation that gives you all of the characteristics that you love about Buddy from the film, but that have kind of a musical comedy bent to it, and it gives you that freedom to be a little different. And if I were trying to do a Will Ferrell imitation, it would immediately be, oh, well, he's not as good as Will Ferrell, so why not just scrap that and start from my own kind of take on it? So that was kind of the first, that was the question I kept getting when I would tell people that I was going to do this role was, oh, well, aren't you kind of scared to have to imitate Will Ferrell? And there was 2 sides to that. One, I didn't ever think that I had to do that. One, especially because Nicole wasn't really looking for that from me. And 2, because of something that I've heard Bob and everybody here at the Rep talk about, which is that they create these productions. They don't try and do carbon copies of productions that have existed before. They create them here, they build them here, they design them here. It's everybody's kind of, these creative teams take on this material, and so I felt that freedom coming to do it here specifically, that was a thing that's encouraged, that idea of approaching it in your own way. So he's been fun and surprising and rewarding so far, so we'll see how he keeps growing for the next 5 weeks.
The thing that I think would invoke comparisons to the film is if we were trying to imitate the film in some way. I saw the film 6 or 7 years ago, maybe part of it. I specifically chose not to watch the film. I don't know if that was a good or bad choice on my part, but I love the fact that we're coming at it from a very honest place. I didn't expect any of these people to be imitators. I didn't expect Annalise to be our own Mary Steenburgen, who was in the film. I wanted people to come approach their characters from a very authentic, genuine, fresh perspective.
That's right. I forgot about that Mary Steenburgen played your role. Oh, yeah. That's right, since she's from here. David, let me ask you a question. You play the dad. in the show, and you were last here in Treasure Island, where you were creating, and that was a premiere. That was a brand new play. So you were creating a role from scratch. You were creating the artistic footprint for that role. This is a role that others have played, you know, again, in the film. And is there a difference from an actor's point of view in creating a role in a world premiere versus creating a role that is more familiar to perhaps you and to others? Any difference?
Well, there is for me, and you probably would get different answers, I guess, depending on who you ask, but you got me today. I think it's a brand new piece. There's a lot more latitude, a lot more freedom to make it as personal as you want it to be. There aren't any boundaries. I totally agree with what Ethan said, though, and support that. When you do a role, though, that has been performed by legendary personalities and talents, there's always that question, and there are certain boundaries that you have to struggle to stay within and stretch to make personal yourself. So I think when you get to do a brand new piece, my wife, who's also an actress, we're always looking to do works that have never been done before, because the level of experimentation and exploration and personalization you can bring to it are so much greater. So that was a blast to do that show. It was an amazing piece. But just like Ethan said, with this one, I'm his father, not James Caan, and it'd be nice to have James Caan's career, but we have to relate to each other as each other, and so we can't give it the same treatments that we might have seen in a film or that some other Broadway star might have given it, just because the most important thing is for us to be honest amongst ourselves. So there is a certain difference, but doing Treasure Island was a real thrill, just because we got to do it from scratch. And if you'd been in those rooms, we were throwing out scenes and throwing in scenes and taking out songs, and it was a real playground. So it was a blast. But this is a blast too. It's a wonderful cast, a wonderful group, and we're making it our own. It's a very personal story for us.
I'm always amazed at how the actors have such a short time to get to know each other, to create a chemistry, and particularly in like a family unit. Here, Lisa plays Jovi, who becomes the love interest of Buddy. Annalise and David are married in the play. David's real life wife, Joan, if you saw Born Yesterday at the Rep some years ago, she was the lead in that production, and I'll give her a plug too. She'll be here, is it in the winter, January, February?
You are very well informed. She's coming to perform with the symphony here in town. I think it's in February.
I think it's February too. She's coming to do a concert with the symphony. And so you can look forward to seeing David's wife, Joan, there. She's amazing, and I'm looking forward to seeing her then.
Better half is definitely appropriate there.
Nobody's disagreeing with you on this panel. Let me ask our women on the panel, though, in terms of creating characters and creating chemistry, how does that happen? Does it happen organically? Does it happen... Are there specific techniques that you guys employ to create the chemistry that needs to come alive on stage? Again, talking about your process.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always really important to establish the relationship off stage first. I mean, and you're doing that through rehearsals, but especially when you're playing a love interest relationship where you have to develop this relationship over the course of the play. It's really important that you can kind of get to know the person really well off stage. That way you can, really relate to an audience. An audience can actually just see the energy that you have one way or another. You're not necessarily in love with that person in real life, but there is an actual energy and like an actual love between the two of you. So that's really important. So, I mean, even just sitting down and talking for an hour after rehearsal or all of those things just go really far.
Yeah, at least you join in on that too.
So I'm assuming a lot of you guys here in the room are married or have been married. So we have a different relationship. Obviously, Buddy and Jovi fall in love, and I think Walter and Emily start out at a place that a lot of married couples are often in, which is not communicating, though they're speaking. So it's a different type of relationship, because I think it's very rare in real life to be on the same page with your partner. You might be in the same room, you might be having a conversation, but you're actually not talking about the same thing. And in the course of our story, we have to kind of establish that this history, this conversation has been happening for weeks, for months, for years. Personally, I like to keep a little bit of my secrets to myself as an actor, because I think that's what we do in real life, that we're not as often as forthcoming, even with the people we love the most, because that's the scariest, to tell the people we love how we really feel. And what's exciting as an audience member is to watch, I think, a husband and wife become vulnerable again, to put themselves out there for the 50th time, the 500th time, to say, I choose you today, and I'm going to try again to choose you tomorrow. I'm going to get a little emotional thinking about it. But that's my favorite part of this story, is that where Jovi and Buddy get to meet and we watch them fall in love and the sparks fly. We have the opposite, where we kind of start at what might look like the end and try to get back to the beginning. So, did that answer that question?
Yes, it does. No, it's really nice. I think Nicole wants to jump in there.
That's why getting actors in the same room in the audition process is so important, because they can be great, they can be everything that you want, they look good, they sound good, but do they look good and sound right with the other person? I paired David up with like 15 different women, I think, or something, but Annalise came in. Yeah, every man's fantasy. But Bob always laughs because he thinks I have this affinity for beautiful redheaded women too, because I'm always calling in these tall, beautiful redheads, and I saw Annalise and I was like, yeah, I hope they sound great together, and they did, and it was fabulous, and just the chemistry that Jovi and Ethan, I know your name's not Jovi, Alyssa and Ethan had to get together, that was great too, and I probably have 3 times as many women submit for roles as men. There's not as many meaty female roles out there. There's 3 times as many women auditioning out there. It's tougher for a girl to get a break in this business. And I probably had double the amount of women apply as men. And just not only sorting through the hundreds and hundreds of people, but then you get in a callback situation and you're pairing them up and seeing what kind of chemistry they have together. That's the most important aspect of casting.
You know, it's your team, Nicole. You have the musical director, Mark Binns, your costume designer, Shelley, the lighting designer. These are people that you have now worked with, particularly Shelley and Mark. And Marissa. The choreographer, who's also in the production. Production's as big as ELF, and ELF is huge. Nicole mentioned a cast of 30 on any given day, 33, 36. That's one of the biggest casts you'll ever see. When they all come out at the end, there's a big sort of finale at the end, and when everybody's on stage, it's just about as many performers as you'll ever see on the rep stage. And the size and scope of a production like this, it has to be put together in 22 days, doesn't happen accidentally, or doesn't happen because we get lucky. It happens because a team of people build a common vocabulary. And Nicole, could you comment a little bit on the team of people that are working with you, who have collaborated with you to create this production, and why you want to go back and work with these people over and over again?
It's interesting because I've been directing now for over 25 years, and sometimes you'll have the right costumer or the right music director, but very rarely do you feel like you've built a team of people that you totally rely on and off the stage. Mark and I have been working together now for the last 4 years. Marissa and I have been together going on 10 years. I hired her fresh out of high school. She was 17 years old, and she is, to this day, the best choreographer I've ever worked with. It's been fun to watch her process. I hired her for the first time for a professional show for White Christmas a couple of years ago, and she knocked it out of the ballpark for that one. Shelley Hall's been designing my costumes for the Summer Musical Theater Intensive and Complete Works and White Christmas. No, not White Christmas. Yes. For the last few years. But to build a dream team of people that you're like-minded, that push you beyond your limits, that make you better than what you are, that aren't afraid to step on your toes at the right time and say, hey, let's try it this way. People that you have confidence in, and honestly, are all my prayer partners at the same time, which is kind of a cool thing. You just don't get that very often. So I'm lucky. I'm very lucky in that respect. People that are my friends on and off the stage, but Bob lets me pick whoever I want. He's, who do you want? You can bring in whoever you want. These are the people I select, not because they're close by, but because they're my first choice, and that's amazing.
And the very cool thing about that is that each of the people she mentioned are all based in Central Arkansas. These are people who have worked at the Rep over a period of time. And as you when each of the actors introduced themselves, they all mentioned that they grew up here or there, and they're all based in New York. We have a number of Central Arkansas-based actors in the cast as well. But to have a production team that's all based in Central Arkansas is very unusual. And is a great testament to the quality of the artistic life that exists and the craftsmanship and the skill level that exists in Central Arkansas that we aren't often familiar with. And a lot of these folks don't have the opportunity every day to demonstrate their skills. And so I think it's wonderful. And another part of the Rep's identity is the ability to show you the work of people who live and work and create right here in Central Arkansas. And so productions at the Rep are always a great marriage of very talented people from our area combined with people who come from across the country to tell stories on our stage. And that's a defining characteristic of almost everything you see at the Rep. Now I'm going to get, I have a question for Ethan that's kind of stupid, but I got to ask it anyway. So, because it's about costume design. Well, you know, you can't be an elf without wearing little curly shoes. And these are the little things that come into play, right? How do you get up and down? We talked about this. Getting up and down the stairs from the dressing room?
I have to walk kind of turned out because my feet with the curl are so long that they are much bigger than the step itself. So I have visions of myself, you know, hearing the places call and being a little behind and trying to run up the stairs and just going face first into them. But that hasn't happened yet. I guess we're still early.
I think it affects everything from how you dance to how you, I mean, everything.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, the first image of me in the show is I'm in bed, and I'm in a bed that I'm way too big for, and the only thing you see that comes out first are these curly shoes, and you know, I don't feel, it sounds kind of cliche, but I don't feel like I'm fully dressed till I put the shoes on. It like kind of completes the whole thing. I also wear a really kind of ridiculous but very Buddy-esque curly red wig that I would hate if I had to wear in real life, but somehow like just love it and when I have to be Buddy. So there are those, I guess it's like from head to toe, there are those little finishing touches that really kind of complete him for me.
And that's thank you for saying it that way, because I think it is those finishing touches, and for me it's the shoes, and all the little kids wear the little curly shoes too. I think they have to put theirs on upstairs though, right?
They do, because
yeah.
I mean they'll trip
fall down
the
the stairs. Yeah.
And those were all created by one of our costume interns who's 19 years old, who's one of our apprentices in our shop. Blaine created all those, but shaped them all, felted them all, and they're fabulous. They're all fabulous. They match every individual costume. They're really cute.
And Ethan also brought up the wigs. If you've come to these conversations before, if you were here for the Les Mis conversation, you remember me talking a lot about the wigs, because in Les Mis, everybody were 150 different wigs. There aren't as many, but the wigs are still created by the same young man who created them for Les Mis and every other show we've done the last 2 years. His name is Rob Pickens, and he's 19 years old. And he's from here in Central Arkansas. Now he's a freshman at the University of Tennessee because one of our resident costume designers is the resident designer at the Clarence Brown Theater, which is in residence at the University of Tennessee. And she
Usurped him.
yeah, she saw his work. You know, he was a high school kid when he was working for us. He taught himself how to design wigs, watching videos on the internet and working at his kitchen table. And then he created a side business, it became a national business on the internet, renting out the things he created at home. And so he's this incredible entrepreneur who's also incredibly talented. And so he came back from his freshman year at college to do the wigs for us. He's probably the youngest wig designer of any Lort theater in the United States. And he's remarkably good. And the young man's going to have quite a career, and we're going to be hearing a lot about him. And he created the wigs. Anybody who wears a wig in the show, he created that wig, and it's again just a fun process to watch the actors transform from what the folks you're meeting here today in their street clothes to the characters that they bring larger than life to the Reps stage and to our storytelling. And let me open it up for questions now. What would you guys like to know, or what do you want to talk about? Yes, and they'll bring mics around, and they're coming with one for you right now.
I would like to know what was one of the hardest things that you were working on that was difficult to work through. Or was there one?
Well, we haven't talked at all about our son, who is a local boy named Price Clark, who is 10. And I read the script before we came, and I knew I had a son in the script. And then he walked into the rehearsal room, and I thought, that's a kid. It just did not dawn on me that it was going to be a child. So, and he is so good, and he is so talented, and he is 10. And he's just at that age where he's like perfectly aware as to what's happening around him, and he's just developing fear. You know, if he were 9 or 8, he would be fearless. And if you were 12, you'd be too cool. And it was this moment of realizing my job is to play your mother on stage, but my gift to you as a human being is to be a part of your life right now, to help you figure out how to be an artist, to figure out how to show up every day and put yourself on the line, put yourself and your emotions out there for everyone to see, and they might not like it. And that's a hard thing to do. That's what we do as actors, I think. And it's been hard for him. I mean, Nicole can speak more to that, but
I gave her a book the first week, one of my favorite books, because I saw her with him, and I was like, you're a child whisperer. You need to have this book. And that's really what you have to be. You have to treat them with these adult sensibilities, but remember where they are and where they are at in this process. And we can't forget, too, that these kids are also every day in school, and they're barely in the double digits. And just a few years ago, they did believe in Santa Claus, or maybe they still do. Who knows? When JB walked on set, one of our little 7-year-olds went, it's him. I mean, they thought it was him. And so, you know, she has an extra job of nurturing this young artist along the way, and being a mentor in his life for the next 2 months, because this is a Christmas he's never going to forget. Not just because he gets to be on stage, but he's having a master class every single day. Hopefully.
Anybody else want to jump in on that question about what was any challenges?
Sure. I'll speak a little bit to, specifically my character, Jovi, which, if anybody remembers, was played by Zooey Deschanel in the movie. So once again, you already have the inherent challenge of not playing, the person in the movie, not imitating, but also the way that it's written a bit differently in our script. And at the first time you see Jovi, she's very guarded and she's very harsh, and later it's bitchy. But so it's difficult, I thought, to try to take this character where you're given all this information that she's kind of mean and hard, but then you have to see her soften up. It's got to come from somewhere. So for me, it was trying to get this character who initially isn't likable and trying to make it likable, especially when you have, you know, kind of riding above you, this Zooey Deschanel who everyone loves. So, I mean, that's difficult for me.
Also, when casts come in over the holidays, we're very aware that they're not just here for a job. They're giving up their holidays with their family. That's huge for us here, and that's where Southern hospitality kicks in, and we want to make sure that this isn't just a job, but it's an experience for them. And I think Little Rock is very good about making things extremely warm. We've got a great booster organization that makes things extremely warm. But, you know, you think about Ethan has left his family, Annalise has left her boyfriend, David has left his wife, and poor Alyssa's husband's been in the hospital all weekend. So she's been on stage knowing that her husband's back at home in the hospital. So we have to remember not just the sacrifices they're making on stage, but the personal sacrifices. I mean, they're not home for Christmas, and I take that very personally. I want them to feel welcome and loved and at home while they're here.
Other questions? What? Oh, I'm sorry, I had to cut you off.
We do feel loved and welcomed. I wanted to affirm that was happening.
What else do you want to know about or ask about? Oh, no, you can't be this quiet. Sir?
This is a musical.
It is a musical.
Will it be made, will the movie be made as a musical?
Of a musical? That's a very interesting question. I don't know.
There is, NBC is doing this year, they're doing a special that
that's
is a
right.
hybrid of, it is I believe a stop animation project that is a hybrid of the original film, and they are taking songs that this creative team from the Broadway production wrote and incorporating it into it. So it's like an hour-long Christmas special called, like, you know, Buddy Sings Christmas or something. And it's with Jim Parsons from The Big Bang Theory is playing Buddy in that. So that's, I think, the closest thing they're doing to adapting this stage adaptation into a film, at least for the time being.
But, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if sooner or later, you know, of course, now with NBC producing the live musicals, Peter Pan is Thursday night, I think, isn't it? It's tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah, the live action Peter Pan is tomorrow night. Which is, you know, that last year when they did The Sound of Music live, you know, this attention to musicals getting more visibility through television or film, I wouldn't be surprised. It works very well as a musical. It makes you forget that it was ever not a musical. When I watch it now, and I did not go back and watch. I haven't seen the movie in a while. And you know, Nicole mentioned that she didn't go back. That's a trap for directors to try to go back and, I've just got to recreate what they did in the film. But now that I've started to live with the musical, I don't remember the movie nearly at all. It works so well as a musical. Not every film that's transformed from a non-musical to a musical works so successfully. This one does. It's interesting. There is a phenomenon, as you're familiar with, of turning movies into Broadway musicals. That's kind of a phenomenon now. And it's purely driven by profit margin and familiarity. Designers and directors are often really flummoxed by that phenomenon because film moves from scene to scene to scene to scene very quickly through the miracles of editing. When films are adapted to the stage, they are usually equally episodic, which means it just goes boom, 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 location, 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 location. That is very difficult to translate on stage, particularly when you don't have $10 million to create all of the mechanics that can flip the whole thing, you know, within seconds.
We have a scene or location change every 7 to 10 minutes in the show. You'll go from the North Pole to Times Square to an office building to Macy's to an apartment to Central Park, and it's just, so the backstage choreography has to be as intricate as what the choreography you're seeing on stage, because these huge, we've got 12 little elves on stage and we've got a 2-ton toy store that comes in at one point. So we try very hard not to run over them. their parents would not be happy about that, but there's some pretty intricate choreography that's going on. And if you know the reps stage, you know that the right side of our stage has a huge storage space. The left side of our stage, you better not walk 4 feet or you'll be standing on Main Street. I mean, it's teeny tiny, so you have to think ahead. It dictates a lot of where your entrances and exits are. It dictates a lot of where big set pieces can come out of. There's a lot of things that, because when I'm first blocking things in my head, I saw entrances happening stage left in one particular scene quite a bit, but scenery and things that are back there and things that have happened before dictate where those entrances and exits are going to be.
Terry.
Could the actors speak to the reputation of the rep amongst their peers back in New York, especially those of you who have not been here before, both from the standpoint of an organization and from a venue?
Terry has a particular, I'm going to just give them the commercial here about Terry. Terry is the architect who created the rep, so Terry knows the space really well.
I mean, as soon as I found out that I was offered the role, I mean, I called every friend that I ever knew who worked here, which has been a lot, which is also it's a testament in and of itself. But everyone said that it's been one of their favorite places to work, that they take care of you here, both the theater and the community, and that the facility is beautiful. So all of those things are completely true, and I think that's very strongly the idea that we have, even in New York or here in the state, about the theater. So
Absolutely. That's the same thing that happened to me. Was every single person said, I love my time in Little Rock. They treat you so well. It's a beautiful theater. It's beautiful housing. I also will throw in that my life partner is a corporate lawyer, and he was very excited, and he told everybody, you know, there are only 70 Lort theaters, 40 Lort theaters.
No, there's 76.
76 Lort theaters in the entire United States, and so it's of all the 4,000 people that he always likes to give the facts about it. So he was saying it's the biggest theater in art. It was the whole thing. So all of corporate law in New York City knows about it too. So.
I'll just add one thing. Obviously, it's my second time. Ethan, I'm sure, would support this because it's his sixth. But I had never come to Arkansas before, but I was very happy to come back. So just the fact that I wanted to come back says something. But besides being a wonderful facility, the thing that I really got to just point to, because there's some brilliant theaters around the country, and the thing that strikes me most about this theater. Listen to it, the quiet, the wait. The thing that strikes me most is there's this tremendous warmth that comes from the staff. The administrative staff, the creative staff. When you're doing art, especially performance art that's like theater, you have to work together. It requires, at its best, to have a certain amount of trust and support. And when I'm here, the staff here is just incredibly supportive and warmth, really, and that's significant because it's so easy in our business to have egos that get out of control, and everybody has their own personal, desires and needs and wants, because to be artists, you have to be passionate, and I'm really struck by the support and the warmth here. But to your credit, it's a wonderful facility.
You have to see how it's decorated right now. You have to come down and see. Did you see? It's Buddy the Elf decorated the lobby. And Ethan, I want you to jump in on that only because you have been here. Full Monty was, 10 years ago almost?
2007, it's almost 8.
Yeah, 8 years ago. You have more friends here in Little Rock than I do, and this is, you are to be commended for how well actors are so, this gypsy life is not a myth, it's an actual, their work, to work, if they're not working in the city, they're traveling all over the country. And as Nicole mentioned, here, they're Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, they're here with us. But my admiration is very deep for the craft and for the dedication. You have to be willing to sacrifice a lot to make a career as an actor. You have to be willing to sacrifice on every level, often financially, almost always personally. And you have to commit to that for years, even to see if you can make a living or a career in this profession or cobble together a life that is rewarding to you. But Ethan, I know you were in Florida, I think, were you in Florida before you came up here? And talk a little bit about your experience here with the different productions and how we have been fortunate enough to encourage you to come back six times. I think there's only probably a couple of other actors who have been in more productions. One of them is in this production of Elf, which is Mary Caitlin, who started here when she was 6. And so Mary Caitlin Ward's probably been in more than 6. An actor named Joe Graves has been in more than 6. But I don't know that I don't know that anybody else falls into that category.
I think the first line of my bio kind of says it all. We keep talking about this sacrifice that we make to be here for the holidays, and in my bio I say that I'm elated to be home for the holidays because this has sort of become a home to me. Artistically and personally, it all comes down to the people. I echo David's sentiments exactly. It's a supportive and nurturing place, both personally and especially artistically. The artistic relationships you develop first because that's the task at hand, but then the friendships that develop out of that are just, they're mind-blowing to me, and they make me want to seek out the opportunities to keep coming back here. And ultimately, so does the product that I get to present. And I've had family members, and for this particular production, I have lots of friends coming. I have a friend who I met doing the production of The Who's Tommy, who's coming back to see this show, and she has gone on to do 5 or 6 Broadway shows and has kind of solidified herself as a kind of major player in the New York scene, and she cannot wait to come back here and see people, and like, you know, we're gonna have some nostalgic moments, I'm sure. And then beyond that, like I said, the friendships that I've developed with Nicole and Marissa and Mark and Bob, and I coach, I do career coaching for younger actors in New York, and
All of our alumni go find Ethan when they get to New York.
And they're so, Nicole just does such a great job of creating these curious and intelligent, and with all the things that she spoke about, the manners and the etiquette and the understanding of the process and the respect for the process. I mean, something Bob said when I first was here for the Full Monty that has always stuck with me is someone asked at one of these events that we did, what do you look for when you're casting? And he said, oh, well, you look for, you know, what they've done that is commensurate with the project, and if they fit the type of the character. And then he said, and then something I look for is, have they worked at places multiple times? And I remember that was the first time anyone ever said that. I was obviously a little younger then, and I have led my whole career with that idea of I strive to build relationships anywhere I work that makes people want to have me back, because it means not only was the product up to a level that they were satisfied with, but also you were a person they wanted to have around. And that's the thing that I'll have the most pride with at the end of the day. Maybe the role didn't fit, maybe the production didn't turn out the way you had planned, but if they wanted to have you there and they were happy to have the person that you authentically lead with around more than once, I think that's the best compliment anyone can pay in this business, especially. So,
and that's very important, and Nicole and I have discussed this too. You know, in our daily lives, in our own jobs, we want to work with people that we enjoy and that you know, work well with us, and that we want to go out and have a cup of coffee or have a drink with. Many of you in your jobs are stuck with the same coworkers for 10 or 20 years. we're only stuck with these guys for 7 or 8 weeks. So we are constantly reinventing our coworkers. We are constantly changing that environment, and there are benefits to that, and also, of course, there's the downside of that, which is sustaining relationships. And in this business, as Ethan said, it's all about relationships. And it's true that when I'm in New York doing auditions, and I know Nicole does this too, that you look at an actor's resume, and an actor could have a glorious resume, but if they've never gone back to the same place again, they might have 20 different amazing credits on their resume, but not a single repeat. It raises a question in my mind, because again, at the end of the day, it comes down to relationships and working with people. And I'm of a certain age where I want to enjoy the people I work with. I would choose someone that's great to work with. That's a defining characteristic for me, or a deciding characteristic for me. But it is, that point is well taken, that you do want to work with people who are going to collaborate with you. It's very intense. It's rough. It's a short period of time. You've got a lot to do. There's going to be things about it that are tough and unpleasant. So you want to be in the trenches with the people you care about and people that care about you. I didn't know if you were getting ready to jump in on that or not.
One of the things that we teach in our training program is we're not just giving you the talents to get hired, we're teaching you the etiquette and the life skills and the team player skills to be rehired again, because you can be the most talented person in the world, but if I don't want to spend time with you, it doesn't matter to me. And do I love your talent enough to inflict you on the other 32 people for the rest of the rehearsal process? Not really. So it's an affability. It's an instant connection you have with someone in the audition room. Sometimes I'll look at people and say, "Are you as nice as you appear to be?" because I'm trying to figure you out right now. But ultimately, the people that you surround yourself, or the people you're spending your life with, and your life is made up of moments and blah, blah, blah. But it's why I knew I wanted Ethan back. It's why I've cast him for the last 3 big shows I've done. And hope I got a part for you next time, Ethan, because I'll sure bring you back. But no, we've had a great cast and a great time. And this is a deceptively hard show. It may seem like a fluffy, Christmassy, syrup-covered musical, but it is hard. And there's more set changes than there is in Les Mis. It's a bigger cast than Les Mis. And it is open to so much interpretation. And I decided not to watch the movie on purpose. I didn't want to be influenced by that. And I wanted to empower my actors to make decisions and personal choices and to bring their authenticness to the process.
And I'll make one last point about the actor's craft here. When you come to the Rep and you're a subscriber at the Rep, you'll see 6 productions a year. And over the course of the last 20 years, you'll see how a designer's work evolves over time. The best example would be Mike Nichols. He's not the set designer for Elf, but you've seen Mike Nichols' sets for so many different plays, world premieres, musicals, Shakespeare. So you see his artistic work in all of its different facets. If you went to an art museum, you could see the work of Picasso evolve over time and see the different facets and come to appreciate the artist in his different phases. But what you often don't get the opportunity to see with actors, because in the United States, we don't work in resident company environments hardly at all. You only get to see the actors in a quick snapshot in a role that they've created for you for the one time you've come down to see them in a particular play. But what's beautiful about the craft of acting is its versatility, is that the work that these actors, skilled actors, inhabit a role. And over time, you can see the depth of that actor's craft and the facets of that actor's craft. And so having actors in productions more than once, having directors who have the opportunity to work with actors in different roles and collaborate in different ways is something that I think is very important for our art form, and something that we don't talk about very often, but I think is very important because the primary craft of our profession is the actor. That's where everything emanates from. That's the starting point. even though the actors are often the last piece of the puzzle that comes into a production, when the design and everything else has already been created. They are at the forefront, and so seeing that their work, more than just how they might be typed in a particular role, is something that's important for us and why we want to bring actors back to the theater. Well, I believe it is 1 o'clock, and we're going to wrap up. Again, I want to thank our good friends here at the Clinton School for inviting us to have this conversation with you. I encourage you, if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, please do so soon. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to our panel for being here. Thank you.